I'm Huon Hooke, and this is The Real Review. The wine we're tasting today is Main Ridge Estate Half Acre Pinot Noir 2019 from the Mornington Peninsula. Main Ridge Estate is one of the original vineyards on the Mornington Peninsula in the modern era. There were some vineyards there in the 19th century, but mainly just small hobbyist type operations which went out of production eventually. But then in the 1970s, Nat and Rosalie White came along and planted Main Ridge Estate. 1976, I think, was their first planting, and the Meyer family at LG Park were establishing that property about the same time. This is very quickly became one of the great renowned vineyards and wineries of the Mornington Peninsula, and has remained so. So that's over 45 years now. This has been an exemplary winery. And Nat White, who was the winemaker at Main Ridge Estate originally, the original owner, was mentor to so many people on the Mornington Peninsula. He was a great influence for good in the Mornington region. He helped all sorts of people get established, shared his knowledge with them. He started off as an engineer, I think, and then he went off and studied enology so that he could understand the winemaking and the viticulture a bit better. And he ran the place with his wife Rosalie for about 35 odd years before he decided to sell it because they wanted to retire. And in 2015 they sold it to the Sexton family. And James Sexton is the son of those people who bought the property. He is now the winemaker and manages the property. He started his career, James, in hospitality. He worked in restaurants as a waiter, a sommelier and a restaurant manager before they bought Main Ridge Estate, and then he moved down and started his new life as a vigneron. And I believe he started studying externally wine science at Charles Sturt University. I don't know whether he's finished the course yet, but he certainly started the course. And Main Ridge Estate is one of the peninsula's highest vineyards. It's on the Red Hill, which is the basalt red-brown soil, volcanic soil, and the highest part of the peninsula, about 240 meters altitude, 240 meters altitude. And this wine, I think the Pinot Noir, has 5 different clones in it. So this is a typical thing with Pinot Noir. People plant lots of clones and try to get complexity by a mixture of clones, but also to make up for seasons that one clone doesn't do very well, other clones might do well. So it's a bit of insurance. The yields are quite low, less than 2 tonnes an acre. 2 tonnes an acre really being the limit, I think, for great Pinot Noir. There are 2 Pinot Noirs produced at Main Ridge Estate. There's the Half Acre, which is the high-priced one, and the Acre, which is, these days, in my opinion, getting pretty near as good as the Half Acre. It always used to be the sort of poor relation, not nearly as good as the Half Acre, but the last couple that I've had have been excellent. So, how does this wine taste, this Main Ridge Estate Half Acre Pinot Noir 2019? The first thing I notice about it is the colour is a beautiful colour. It's got quite a deep purple-red colour. Quite often the high altitude Pinots down there in the peninsula don't have such a deep colour. That's a little unexpected to have such depth of colour, but let's taste it. But the brightness and the hue are exceptional. And when I smell it, again, it's I think 19 is a warm year, and so the wine is got lots of richness. It's plummy rather than cherries, raspberries, strawberries. It's got dark cherries through to dark plum kind of aromas. Foresty notes, a subtle, very subtle oak usage. You can't really pick the oak in this wine, but it's there, adding extra complexity. And there are certainly floral high notes in there, which are really adding to the charm of this wine. It's got a beautiful nose. But it's the aroma of a really serious Pinot. This is not a delicate, ethereal, potpourri kind of nose. This is as beautiful as those wines are. This wine smells like a serious wine. Let's taste it. And again, the flavours there are rich, ripe flavours. This is 14% alcohol, so it's nice and ripe. And the flavours go hand in hand with that. The dark plums, dark cherries, really quite the riper end of the spectrum to me, which is very much what you get if you buy a really good Grand Cru Burgundy from a very good vintage. You get those sorts of aromas. This is a really stunning wine. I don't notice too much in the way of whole bunch character there. I think probably they don't use many stalks in the ferment, if any. It's got a really plump, rich, mouth-filling presence on the palate, and that's a serious wine. The tannins are quite evident there as well. Tannin is very much a part of good Pinot Noir. It will certainly help the wine stand up to hearty food, but it will also help it to age very well. That's an excellent Pinot. So how do we rate this wine? We rated it 95 out of 100, which is a gold ribbon score. Very, very good score. It's actually the number 10 rated wine out of 57 Pinot Noirs from the region in that vintage, 2019. So that's a top ranked score from us. We've said drink it from 2022 to 2029. I'd be quite happy to drink it now, but I think it's just going to get better for the next few years. And 2029, that only gives it a 10-year lifespan. That's a conservative number, of course. 15 years would be nothing for these wines, probably more, depending on how well it's cellared. But this is a wine that I think has got a really distinguished and long career ahead of it. It's a hell of a good wine. So we asked the winemaker James Sexton what sort of food he'd like to have with this wine, and he said beef Wellington, or mushroom Wellington if you're a vegetarian. Well, it wouldn't be quite the same, but beef Wellington sounds wonderful to me. That's a hearty dish, of course, and it's obviously designed because this is quite a hearty wine. This is not a delicate Pinot, this is a fuller bodied Pinot. It will stand up to quite hearty flavours. I think that's an excellent wine and a great choice. I would also point out that it's $95, which is quite at the high end of Pinot, but if you compare it to what you can get in Burgundy for $95, that's extremely good value for money. Good health.